What's up, friends? Welcome to SPDM TV. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I watch a lot of TV. We talk about various TV topics, reviews, and general appreciation of TV, past and new. You can follow us, or you can follow me on Instagram threads, serialized and Blue Sky at MLHilty2452 to see what all I'm watching. This week, we're going to be talking about Stranger Things. We've had about 6 weeks to digest everything that happened in the final season of Stranger Things, particularly the end, which I don't know, has some interesting things to talk about with that, about what's next, how did we feel about the ending, how it was executed. So
Yeah.
a good person that I wanted to bring about and talk to them about how they're feeling now that it's over and we've had a little time to digest. Frequent collaborator, good friend John Tillyard. John, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Yeah, I'm turning 40 pretty soon. But other than that, it's okay.
I just turned 40 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff, right?
Yeah.
What a time to be alive, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the final season, particularly those final couple batches of episodes for Stranger Things. So before we get into that, I kind of just, let's take the temperature of how, like give me your background on Stranger Things. Like, did you, were you enjoying the show? Were you anticipating this final season? Were there questions? Were there nerves? How how were you going in before the final season of Stranger Things?
To be honest, the previous season, season four, that would have been, I actually felt like that should have been the final season. I think if you just have Vecna die at the end of that, that could probably have worked as a way to just wrap things up. So I actually didn't really even like the fact that we were going to get a final season, but I felt like, okay, so perhaps, you can tie up a few more loose ends here a bit in a bit more of a satisfying way. And, with it being Netflix's biggest show in its final season, they're probably like really going to let rip and have like a film-like budget for it. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see exactly what they do with that. In terms of like hopes or desires for the final season, I only really had one very small one, which was not fulfilled, unfortunately.
Got
So
it.
yeah, I didn't really have any kind of like realistic hopes for what I thought was going to happen. But I just kind of thought like, yeah, it's probably going to be like the closest thing to a movie we're ever going to get from a TV series. So that's going to be like interesting to see at least.
Got it. Okay. I feel very similar to you in a lot of ways. It was thinking that that final season was, or that fourth season, rather, good return to form. I enjoyed Vecna as a villain, enjoyed that they kind of went back to their roots in terms of like a big bad villain that, like, and I wasn't a
Oh,
huge fan of
oh,
how hello, you good?
hello. Yep, yep, you're back.
Okay, cool. I wasn't really a huge fan of how they split everyone up, but part of the natural course of how a TV show goes, that when there's conflict, one way to, just expand the lore a little bit more is to just split everyone up, right? So, yeah, overall, but I think my biggest issue with this season, or like the fifth season going into it, was, boy, these kids do not look like they're in high school anymore. And I
Yeah,
know I know that's silly and kind of childish, but also it's the truth of the matter is that all these kids have drastically grown up compared to where we saw them originally, which only understates more as we've gone through this whole season, how, like, if you look at the flashbacks and everything that's been going on, it's like,
yeah,
oh, you all look very different from this. So
yeah.
that's something I know I kind of struggled with. So let's get into it. This will be a full spoiler talk for the fifth season. So do you want to break this down into chunks, or do you want to talk about the season overall?
I prefer to talk about the whole season. I think. I
All
think
right,
my thoughts are just like about the whole season. I think.
got it. So let's start with opening thoughts for the season. If we were to do our handy dandy SiftPop scale, do we, like it, love it, hate it, dislike it, or did you think it was just okay? So what do you think?
I'd go low side of liked it because like when I finished watching it, I felt fairly sort of satisfied. Thought, yeah, that was good. And then when I started turning
Then
over
you,
in my mind,
as soon as you
like
start
what I
thinking
thought
about it,
about
it's like,
specific
wait a
things,
minute. Yeah.
like a lot of them were negative. I had a lot of negative thoughts. So
I'm
yeah,
right.
low side of liked it, I'd say.
I am right there with you in terms of your thinking, is that I felt very satisfied with how it ended, particularly that last 40 minutes of the
Yeah.
episode. The epilogue is really great. It gave me Return of the King vibes. I believe that you're a robot if you didn't at least get somewhat emotional during that final D&D scene. But if you didn't, I can't fault you too much for that.
Oh,
But as soon as I started thinking about it more, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. There's lots of things that I have questions about, and lots of things that I didn't find as fulfilling as I hoped that it would be, which is why I'm even in just the high side of it was just okay. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that, boy, this is a lot of time that they particularly in the final episode, that's a lot of stuff you crammed in for not a whole lot of payoff. And like,
yeah.
great, great, cool. So before we get into some of the details of the season and kind of things that we like, some questions that we had, and some character discussions, I have to ask: were you one of those people who thought that there was going to be a secret 10th episode of this season, or however many?
I didn't hear that rumor. I
Oh,
don't really know where else can you go with the story if you make another episode.
well, what's it called? Something gate.
Stranger Gate?
Hold on one second. Conformity gate. That's right, conformity
Oh,
gate.
okay.
So the major fan theory behind
Oh,
conformity gate. Can you hear me okay?
yep.
Okay,
Got
cool.
you now.
So conformity gate says that the final that final epilogue part didn't happen, and it's just Vecna just trying to trick everyone into thinking that everything's all hunky dory, and but they're all still stuck in the upside down, and the real ending is coming. And I think it's a defense mechanism for people who are like, well, that wasn't a satisfying enough ending. But they think that Vecna is just playing an illusion on everybody, and we
Oh,
were
you've
supposed
gone.
to get a you good? Hello?
Oh.
I can hear you.
Oh, I heard you just that. Yeah, you're back.
Yep, cool. I think it was a defense mechanism for a number of people who didn't find the ending as satisfying as that they hoped, and they thought that the Duffer Brothers were going to give them something with a more satisfying conclusion, but it didn't happen, and now people were
Yeah.
upset about that. So I guess Conformity Gate was a big bust, which I think it would have been really cool if they were able to pull it off. But again, I didn't think the creators were could pull something like that off.
I don't think you can do a twist like that and not like just have it happen at the end of the final episode or something like that. So I don't think you can do that to like the general public, like make them think that the show's over and then like, psych, we got you.
I
I don't know how you could get away with that.
I especially in this day and age with spoilers being, thrown around left and right, I just don't understand how, like, if Marvel can't even get an Avengers Doomsday trailer out because it gets leaked online, what makes Stranger Things think that they can get a secret episode out in a timely manner? So fully aligned on that. I was not
Yeah.
expecting that. I was kind of laughing at the people who thought Conformity Gate was a thing, even though deep down inside, I would have been ecstatic if they would have been able to pull that off. But I just don't think that Netflix or Stranger Things could have pulled anything like that off. So, with that being said, let's get into some of the things that we want to talk about with season 5. So, John, where would you like to start for season 5? What's something that's kind of been in your head a little bit that you're like, I need to get my thoughts out on this?
Let's talk about Holly and
We're
just
okay.
how much of her there is this season.
Okay, let's do that. So Holly is Mike Wheeler's and Nancy, I guess, youngest sibling, and ostensibly a main character this season. So John, go ahead, let it rip.
So I don't know if they had like Holly's role in this final season planned from the beginning because I actually sort of when when I saw how big a role she was going to play in this season, I actually had to sort of do a bit of Googling to find out who the heck is this? I don't remember her being there before. But like, no, she was there from the very beginning, just as a very young child. And suddenly, like, she's a main character. It's like, okay, well, I guess maybe they're thinking because the kids look like adults now, they're thinking, let's make an actual child like the main character now. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm down for that. They've introduced like characters that have just been having side roles in the past, like into like more major roles, like Lewis's sister had a more prominent role later on than she did at the start.
Mm,
So I'm down with that. I don't know if I'm down for Holly like beating literally the main character
yep.
throughout like most of the entire season, like the main person that we're focusing on and is the main person in peril the whole time. I don't know if that's something I care enough about. I don't know if I care about enough about this character that I have basically seen nothing of prior to this season.
Hmm.
That it's what I want to see. What I did kind of like is that we actually get to see what it is like to be captured by Vecna. I mean, like being in that kind of like suspended animation state in the house and everything. Presumably that is where Will was during the first season, that we just didn't see it.
Presumably, yeah.
That's kind of interesting to see, and it's interesting that Holly does learn a lot over the course of the season about how to fight Vegna. You know, obviously Max is there to help her out in that kind of way, and that's the thing actually I did like about the focus on Holly. It's like it's at least Max got a little bit of a role before she like came round and woke up. So it's like okay, that's a way to get Max more into the kind of story. But yeah, overall, I think it's just a little bit too much Holly, and I don't know if I care enough about that character really that I wanted her to be like the main focus of the story, and the whole mission really not even to be like fighting Vegna for most of the final season. It was to rescuing Holly, and it's like
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel like Vegna on his own is enough of a goal that you don't
Yeah,
really need Holly as well.
yeah. So here's the thing. I thought Holly as a character was fascinating. I enjoyed her performance as well. The main girl that they got for her as a character, Nell something. I don't remember, but I thought that she was a great character. I love some of the moments that she had with Mike, like introducing this element of D&D to her, and also the moments between her and Max. I did like that. However, kind of where I'm right there with you with this is that, boy, that's an awful lot of screen time to dedicate to somebody who we have not spent the last 9 years getting to know. And if they would have introduced
You've gone
Holly,
again. Oh no, hang on, you're back.
if they would have introduced Holly in maybe like season 3 or even like season 4 to tee her up as like a bigger deal, I think I would have liked that better. But they didn't. And also, and here's the thing that kind of bothers me about Holly a little bit is that you have given Holly this like central storyline and this central character standing
Yeah, you're back. You're
okay,
back. You're okay.
when you have sidelined Erica, who's Lucas's sister, for the better part of like the last 2 seasons. So like, could we have not done something with Erica instead and kind of
Yeah.
had her as a character that we've gotten to know? Because I gotta say that's one thing that bothered me a lot. Erica didn't do anything in these last couple of seasons or like last couple of episodes, and that bothered me a lot because I thought Erica was amazing. And the fact that we're shifting from Erica to Holly and this younger generation, it felt like they're trying to tee up a spinoff, and I didn't like that.
You're jumping a bit in and out. I don't know what's going on with my internet at the moment, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that it sucks that happened with I think Holly's a cool character. But I think her part could have been better suited for somebody that we have had before as a character that could have gotten a little bit more screen time. Because I, you talking about Holly also harkens to me talking about Derek as a character. I don't know about you and what you thought of Derek. I found Derek to be delightful.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
but here's the difference is that Derek was not like an important piece. He was a piece and he was clearly like a side character, right? So
Yeah.
if I could have had more of that from Holly, and prop
Yeah,
up some of the
yeah,
other
that's true.
people a little bit more, I think I would have been more fine with that. But since the whole season pretty much hinges on Holly Wheeler's disappearance, that's too much. That's too much. And also just mirrors back to, everything with Will. It's like, oh, okay, so Holly disappeared, so we're just gonna do this again like they did in season one. Great,
Yeah,
great, great, great.
it's the Will storyline again, but we just see a bit more of the upside down. Another couple of things actually that bother me about that is they basically just redid the running up that hill scene when they're
Yep,
heading for the portal.
yep.
It's like I was like, oh yeah, everybody loved it. Everybody's like, so like do they think people are nostalgic for a moment in Stranger Things from like a couple of seasons ago? It's like, hey, remember this? Yeah, we're doing
Hmm.
it again.
Right.
And I also thought it was a bit of a dick move by Max to just say, like, right before they went out of the portal, it was like, oh, by the way, this is just my portal. You're going to have to go and find your own way out. And like, the other thing about the original running up the hill scene, Max is running for her life, literally, to try and get through that portal before it closes. But this time, she's like, she gives a little motivational speech to her before she goes.
Yep.
It's like you do not have time for this, Max.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I agree with that. Also, be like I love what Holly said about that as a, kind of not like a dig, but like, hey, a lot of time has passed. It's like I don't even know who Kate Bush is. It's like, oh, that that hurts for that one, and it just
Yeah.
goes to show that the passage of time has, been pretty extensive here. But
Yeah.
this kind of follows a familiar thing that Stranger Things has been doing for a while now is let's retread on things that we know you like. It feels very fan servicey and there's not a whole lot of payoff with that. And that I found that scene to be a little self-serving and also just uninspired, I guess. So like, and another thing that I found kind of uninspired, why did we have to go back in time? Like, what did that, like, did you, like, it's, do you know anything about the Stranger Things stage play or anything like that?
Yeah, I saw it like just before the first part of the final season dropped. So I thought it'd be a good thing to lead into the final season, but actually, it doesn't play a huge role. There's a few little like I think Easter eggs
Mhm.
to the stage play, which I didn't pick up on, but I think a few people online said that they did. And Max does go back into the 50s at like one point, just sort of to show like where Henry was at high school, which you do see in the stage play. But yeah, there's nothing really that sort of ties directly into it, Leo. Like it's basically the stage play is worth seeing just because it's a little bit more of the story and everything, but it's not something that you need to know about in order to understand the final season any better.
Right. Okay. So interesting. Well, the whole going back in time, I felt like it was a grand excuse to be like, hey, we're seeing all of these people slightly younger, a la Avengers Endgame. Like, cool. Okay, we're seeing a young version of Joyce and Hopper and such. But then we get this younger version of Henry in there. We see kind of what happens to him, and I think if we would have focused a little bit more on that as opposed to like, hey, let's talk about this play that doesn't amount to anything in this. Yeah, okay, we're just adding this in so that it connects to the stage performance. I
I
made
think that's the only reason why that scene is in there, to be honest.
Yeah. So, okay, here's one other thing that I want to talk about with you, and this follows a familiar pattern with some of the guest stars that they've had in the past, and that is the huge waste of Linda Hamilton's character as well.
Most pointless character in the entire series. I'm going to say it right now.
So what is John, can you tell me what like Dr. K, how Dr. K was different from Paul Reiser or from Matthew, whatever his name's character was? Like, why? What are we doing with this? Like,
Yeah.
give me some of your thoughts on Dr. K as a character. You obviously didn't like her either, so give me some of your thoughts on that.
I just felt like at first when she showed up, I thought maybe this is going to be like the big bad at the end. Kind of like the last season of Game of Thrones. We had the Night King was defeated first, and then you had Cersei. So I thought maybe this was going to be Cersei, but no, they're just like they just. I guess there is a little bit like right after they defeat Vegna where they come out of the Upside Down. whether they obviously have to fight them a little bit, and obviously Eleven has to do her sacrifice thing. But honestly, it's not like much of a battle really to just defeat them after defeating Vegna. It was all about Vegna at the end, and they were just like an extra little end bit, or sort of like a sort of like epilogue fight scene or something. It's like that's really seemed to be all they were building up to the whole time. It's like every single time they cut to Linda Hamilton during that entire final season, I was like, oh God, can we get back to the kids or something? I just don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah. It's too bad because I love Linda Hamilton. I thought that her inclusion would have been really cool. But the problem is that they did nothing with her. And more importantly, the things that they did with her, they did nothing new. They did nothing inventive. It's a retread of just the initial project that created 11 and the Upside Down to begin with. So I think that that was a tremendous mistake. And I think if in hindsight's 2020 at the end of the day, and if we're Monday morning quarterbacking this, which we kind of are,
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
I think that they would take a look at this situation and think, yeah, we probably should have done something different with Linda Hamilton as a character. What else? What else you got, John? You can continue to go through some of the things that you didn't like, or if you want to pivot to some of the questions you had, or some of the things that you did like.
I liked the sort of tribute they gave to Eddie with the weapons they're fighting him with at the very end, and like visiting his grave and everything, and like just acknowledging the fact that this character did die last season. It's like
Yeah.
because a lot of the deaths in Stranger Things they kind of quickly forgotten about. Like you remember Sean Astin was in this
Yeah.
back in season two. Like
Hmm.
nobody mentions him after he dies.
Yep.
So like yeah, I thought that was great that they gave Eddie that proper send off, and they showed that the characters were affected by it, Dustin in particular. And it makes the fact that he died a little bit more painful for me because he was such a great character, and I wish he'd been in that final season. I would have enjoyed that so much, seeing him in that final battle. But yeah, it was really nice the sort of tribute they gave to him, I thought.
I agree, and I love the effect that it had on Dustin, because if Dustin as a character, you can argue that like most of the characters, they undergo some like trauma and some things that they're kind of dealing with. Dustin was the one character that's like, I don't know, he hasn't really changed that much. Where is Susie as well? What happened with Susie?
Yeah, that was why my one hope for this final season. I hoped Dustin and Susie we actually get a scene together at last. But no, Susie's not even in this final season.
Nope, Susie,
Like,
like
I guess they broke up.
I had read a little bit that Dustin pushed Susie away after everything that happened with Eddie, and I was like, well, that's probably something that he would do, because if he pushed away Steve, he's definitely going to push away Susie. But boy, that's another waste of a character that like we
Yeah,
got one of the best moments in this whole series with those two singing the theme
yeah.
song to the Neverending Story.
I could
But
not stop laughing the whole time that scene first
yeah,
happened.
but
Yeah.
but
Great
for
scene.
but the effect that Eddie's death has on Dustin, I think that mattered a lot. And as much as it bothered me that him and Steve come into conflict so much this season, it also got a good payoff from that scene where Dustin is telling Steve not to go up that
Yeah.
staircase because he knows he's just gonna die, and he doesn't want that to happen. So
I can't
I
lose anyone else sort
yeah,
of trope. Yeah.
that that point that got me pretty good. But I do wish that at some point there would have been something that said
Oh,
that like,
you've gone.
hey, hello, you good? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, John.
Yep, you're back.
Cool, cool.
I don't know what's going on with my internet.
It's
Sorry about
all
that.
all good. That's why we have editing, right? So
You're
all
right.
good. But I think I think I would have just loved to see the town the town kind of maybe, or like Hawkins kind of accept Eddie
Oh,
as
okay.
one of them. That the thing that Dustin does where he like pays tribute to Eddie and just during his valedictorian speech, I really like that, but I also completely forgot that that was a thing that
Yeah,
Eddie said.
yeah, true.
So
It's an interesting moment. I did think there were too many death fake outs. I will say. It's like, I'm trying to remember actually. I think Steve had one near the end.
they did it again with Hopper. They did
Yeah,
it
And
again
Hopper. Yeah,
with Hopper. The
yeah,
Steve one, like, okay, like I would have been pretty devastated if Steve had died, but to do it again with Hopper,
You've gone
that's
again.
just insulting. Hello, hello,
Hello, I can hear
hello.
you.
There we go. To do this again with Hopper was just plain insulting.
Yeah.
So
Same character twice. You can't do that.
you can't do that. I thought that at least one Wheeler parent was going to die because the Demogorgon messed both of them up pretty good, but both of them survive. So cool for that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess Mrs. Wheeler as well, would be a weird character to kill off, given that she didn't even know about the Upside Down until the final season. She just sort of played a sort of side role as just like Will and Nancy's mother. So like, it'd be weird to kill her off.
So, but I guess we could talk about the two kind of death, or I guess we should talk about maybe the biggest death fake out that we got, which depending on if you believe, John, do you believe is 11 still alive? What do you think?
To be honest, I'm not bothered either way because either way, 11 did not get the ending that I wanted her to have. To be honest,
Oh, okay. So,
this was one of my big negatives. I think with this final season is what they did with 11 at the end.
okay. So let's hear it. What's the ending that you would have wanted for 11?
So I'm going to bring up a kind of weird comparison, which is Harry Potter.
Hmm.
So there's a theme kind of in the movies, but very much in the books that Dumbledore kind of has this desire that he wants Harry to have a normal life. He didn't ask to be the person that survived Voldemort's attack and be the one to defeat Voldemort at the end. He feels like Harry deserves to just have a normal childhood, and he wanted him to have that by the end. And that's well represented by him breaking the Elder Wand at the very end when Ron says, "Oh, we'll be invincible with that wand," and Harry's like, "No, no, I don't want that. I want a normal life." So I feel like that's where they were going with 11 because she literally has never had a normal life. She was born as a test subject and
Hmm.
she was having to like fight this regime for her whole life, having to fight Vecna, having to be just this person with powers and like the whole time was never like in the clear and able to just get on with her life because she was constantly having to figure out how she could defeat Vecna, and then when she does defeat Vecna, she has to kill herself basically, or just go off on her own,
Yeah.
depending on how you look at it. So that was a real disappointment for me. I really thought at the end they were going to give 11 like an actual normal life for the first time. She was going to be playing that game of D&D with them at the end, and she was going to be like, "Oh, this is what it's like to just be a kid."
Yeah.
But no, they had to either kill her or have her just go off on her own. If you want an actual answer, I believe that is real. That ending at the end, I feel like that's kind of a weird thing to show if it's not real,
Yeah.
and it makes the ending slightly less depressing, I suppose. And I just don't want to feel depressed when I end a show.
True, true. A lot to unpack here. I thought the way that 11 I thought the way that 11 kind of went about her
Oh,
sacrifice.
oh, yeah, yeah, you're back.
Oh, now you're paused. Maybe my internet is
I can
just
hear
as
I can hear you. I can hear you.
okay, cool. I think the way that 11 went about her whole sacrifice is was fine generally. I did not think that her and Finn Wolfhard had that much chemistry, so their goodbye sequence, I felt, is it sad that I felt nothing from that?
Yeah, I never bought them as a couple, to be honest. I never pictured them as a couple. Maybe it's because they met each other as kids, and I just
Yeah.
don't imagine like kids getting together in the same kind of way.
True,
And
true.
also, I just hate this trope of like the main male character and the main female character have to get together at the end. That's like I'm so sick of seeing that. Why do they always feel like that has to happen at the end?
True. I will give you that. Because this season we had they, I guess, ostensibly broke up. Nancy and Jonathan broke up, which I never bought that they lasted this long to begin with, but okay, cool. We have this
Oh,
final part here. Hello.
hello.
Hello. But I think the payoff that we have at the end with the I believe and showing her, I guess that was like the last thing that they filmed was her in Iceland,
You've gone
just
again. Oh,
hiking,
yep, 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 yep.
her hiking and walking up to this waterfall, which there were three waterfalls there. So like what makes her think that like that was the place that her and Mike were supposed to end up? I don't know. So I
I
think
don't
it
know.
make yeah, a bit on the nose, but I think I think the way that they went about it was good. I felt for everyone's reactions, and I felt that everyone was like super sad about it. And it gave way for like a much needed come to Jesus moment between Hopper and Mike, where he's like, "Look, I've been down this path, kid. Like, you could either, just sit and sulk and be angry, or you could move on with your life and just be thankful that you had the moments that you did."
Yeah, I suppose maybe the idea with the ending is just like it was fun while it lasted,
Mhm.
and like even if you don't get like the happy ending, you had uh,
Yeah.
the journey you traveled on together.
I mean, I think it would have been cool that, hey, if the upside down is gone, maybe 11 doesn't have powers anymore and she could have that normal life. But now that she
Yeah.
still continues to have these powers, yeah, she's always the military's always going to be looking for her. But you know what that does, John? That leaves open for the possibility of more to come.
Oh, of course. Yes, that's the real reason why we have that possible ending from Mike. Yes,
Yeah,
they've got to make a sequel series, haven't they?
at some point, because you know, that's how television works, right? Good.
Yeah, I think we know that Netflix are going to have to do something else with this franchise because it is such a juggernaut for them.
John, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Will the Wise?
I mean, the first thing that annoys me about it is why we have to have that scene and also the coming out scene at
Hmm.
the end of the second volume. I was like, what? Why does he need two coming of age scenes? It's
Mhm.
like,
Okay.
uh, but but yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting to sort of like have his sort of like redemption of like just like finally become 11 basically in the same kind of way with the powers. I kind of assumed it was going to play like more of a role going forward, like it was going to be more of a sort of key role into defeating Vecna or something, but it's more just a sort of like powerful sort of moment for Will. It's like, yeah, there we go, that's Will. He's finally come through on his own. He can hold his own. He's not like a wimpy kid anymore. And I guess he's got over the PTSD of like being Vegna's prisoner for like a full season or something, is like what that's supposed to represent. But again, if you do all that with Will, why do you need him to come out as well? I
Uh,
I just don't get it.
well, like strongly implied throughout the course of the show that Will was gay, and I don't like. I think I appreciated the moments between Will and Robin a lot more than I thought that the coming out scene was good. And don't get me wrong, I did think that moment in the series again could have happened last season, and because it would have given Will, I don't know, something to do the last couple seasons, because ever since season one, Will has been kind of treading water and just been not doing a whole lot
Yeah,
of anything
especially
but
season four. Yeah,
oh,
I don't think he did anything season four.
he did nothing in season four. So I think having having that scene in season four, particularly with the smaller group as well, because for Will to come out to everybody, I thought that was a choice. But also, I think that coming out scene would have been a little bit better had it been with a smaller group, particularly Mike, Jonathan, just Will's mom, which her name escapes me for some strange reason.
Joyce,
Joyce,
Joyce.
that's right. That's right. I've already said Joyce, so I don't know why I brain farted on that. But I think it would have been better for a smaller group, because at the end of the day, what is Steve, who doesn't have a whole lot of interaction with Will? What is Steve going to do with this knowledge? What is Nancy going to do with this knowledge? Nothing. A whole lot of nothing. But I guess it's supposed to mean that like the community's behind him and he's okay to be his authentic self. Yeah, we'll just, think of it from that perspective, I suppose. What about the scene? And I do agree with you also that the scenes where Will gets to use his powers, a few and far between, and
Yeah.
very conveniently used mainly as a plot device, which, okay, cool. But I will give them credit. That first time that it happened, that scene was pretty cool. And I was like, oh,
Great,
finally,
great scene. Yeah.
finally, Will's going to get to do something. I would have thought that if they would have spent a little bit more time if they would have spent a little bit more time developing Holly's character in the previous seasons, could she have had a moment like that? But no, it doesn't matter, because Will gets that moment, and okay, he gets to use that very sparingly, and also only when the plot calls for it. That's that's it.
Yeah,
So
a little bit of a convenient one, but I actually want to say the other thing I want to say about the coming out scene is it felt a bit too much like the Fellowship of the Ring scene in Rivendell. The way they sort of like wrapped that up, the bit where they were all saying "and me, and me." It felt very much like Aragorn saying, "You have my sword and my bow and my axe." It's like I don't know if that was deliberate, but it felt way too much like a copy and paste of the Rivendell scene.
it did feel a little deliberate because it did feel like there was a lot of Lord of the Rings imagery here
Yeah,
between everything that happens at the end, everything that happens with Eleven's sacrifice. I do feel that there is a fair amount of Lord of the Rings homage that it does pay, and I did appreciate that. But yes, I do agree that it felt a little, to me, it felt a little too late. And also, why are we doing this in the way that we're doing it?
yeah.
So,
It's right before they go and fight Vecna as well. It's like, do we have time for this?
I mean, I I feel like that's the case with like a lot of the things that are going on. It's like, do we have
Yeah.
time? Do we have time for this? Like, because there's a fair amount of characters this season that get very much sidelined. And like Erica's one that we talked about. I would say like Lucas doesn't get a whole lot to do
Yeah,
this
true.
this
Yeah.
season. You know, you could even say like with the exception of, everything that happens at the end, 11 didn't even get to do much this season. She stomps around and thinks like, "Oh, I can do this." She's training for for this moment where she has to infiltrate the military base, but that's really about it, you
Yeah,
know?
she spends most of the time trying to get through that wall and just fails.
Just fails. But then we also do get like even Joyce. Joyce just is protective mother. That's really it. With the exception of the moment where Vecna dies, it's because he dies because Joyce, with the power of the memories that we've had the last 10 years. This show has been going on for 10 years, not in terms of that, like, that's proper time, not time like within the show.
You've gone again. Oh,
That's a lot of stuff that we're kind of piling through and processing, and all of that went into Joyce killing Vecna with an axe. I
yeah.
am God.
Yep. You're back. You're back.
I was a little worried that as soon as they started going back and just remembering all the different things that have caused them trauma over the years, that everybody would take a swing of the axe to kill Vecna.
Yeah.
But I did find it a little moving that Joyce was the one to do it, because him kidnapping Will was the whole thing that set this whole thing in motion. So I will give
Yeah.
them a little credit for that.
Yeah. That was a pretty satisfying moment. I want to talk about that final battle with Vecna because outside of that, I actually found it a little disappointing because when they enter that big arena sort of area, it gave me shades of like a final boss battle in a video game with like how big it was. I'm like, oh, this is cool. It's like you're fighting like the Mind Flayer is like this big like monster thing, and then you've got Vecna in the middle, who is probably going to be like the final blow sort of thing. So I'm thinking, is this going to have like phases? Are they have to fight demo creatures first? It's going to be like a big like medieval war kind of scene where the kids are all fighting individual demos or something, and then they got to fight the Mind Flayer, and then they got to fight Vega on his own or something. It's going to go through like different stages or something. And I was looking at the time down at the bottom of the screen, and like there's an hour left of the episode at that point because of the epilogue, and I'm thinking, oh wow, this is going to be really long as well. But
Well,
no,
it
he's like
was,
defeated in like 10 minutes, if
yeah.
that. It's like it's a real letdown for me, just in terms of what I was anticipating. I mean, I think if I hadn't been anticipating it in that kind of way of thinking it was going to be like a final boss, maybe I would have like been less disappointed. But yeah, I felt
See,
like there was a potential for a lot more there.
so I agree with you. I do think that the one thing that kind of saved all of that was Nancy. Because Nancy going all commando on that situation
You've
was
gone again.
really
Oh no, you're back. You're
Nancy
back.
going all commando on this situation. I thought that part was really cool. But
Yeah.
then it amounts to pretty much nothing. And the fact that this whole battle sequence, which again, I agree with you, because it's not just because of our anticipation of it. This is the internet's fault. Plain and simple. It's the internet's fault. It's the internet's fault because the internet was talking about all these things where it's like there's gonna like I'm hoping for a major battle sequence, and it's the same thing with the internet who says like, oh, like one of the main characters has to die, right, for this to be, meaningful or significant or whatever. But neither of those things really happened.
On again.
And oh, you're
Yep, you're back. You're back.
okay. But I this is what we do with the internet. It's like the WandaVision thing all over again, where it's like the internet says that like, oh, all of this is being controlled by Mephisto, and then once they realize that it's Agatha Harkness, it's like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. I'm gonna get angry about this. But it's the internet's fault for giving people this platform to like theorize, and anybody can say what they want. But
Yeah.
I do largely agree with you that that end sequence was a bit anticlimactic. No, like demo dogs, no demo bats during that scene as well. No, like interesting creatures, and also just as a way to be like, oh yeah, the Mind Flayer is still out there. Can't forget about that.
Yeah, I actually didn't mind seeing the Mind Flare there because if I'm honest, I never really liked the idea of Vecna. I thought the Mind Flare was enough, really. I didn't feel like we needed like a human type character to like embody like the big bad in the Upside Down. I thought the Mind Flare was like it was almost like sort of like Sauron again, another parallel with Lord of the Rings. It was kind of like this unknown entity sort of thing. It wasn't really a person or a creature or anything. It was just kind of like a thing that engulfed everything. I thought that was a much more interesting idea for like the thing they had to defeat. I never thought Vecna was like it. How can I put this? It was like a sort of James Bond villain sort of idea of
Mm,
like the big bad at the end. It was like, he was just a thing to make speeches and talk in like a menacing kind of way.
mm.
And that was a turn off for me. I felt the Mind Flare was the thing they needed to defeat at the end. But obviously that's something that was present even before we went into the final season. So I'd sort of accepted it by then.
Yeah.
But the fact that they brought the Mind Flare back and reminded us that that was the thing they had to defeat, that was actually a positive for me. I thought I was like, oh yeah, yeah, the Mind Flare that I actually preferred as like the big bad.
Yeah. What I'm trying to think. What else can we potentially talk about? Because I know I have a couple thoughts on a couple of things, but I want to kind of
The Abyss, just the idea of the Abyss being like the ultimate goal rather than the Upside Down.
yeah, that was interesting. Okay. So not a supernatural D&D, or not a fantasy thing like in D&D. This was all created by science, right? So and then solved with like the
You've got like,
Einstein Rosen Bridge or whatever it's called, kind
yeah,
of paving the way for this. I thought that that was cool. That was interesting. I do think here, and I'm gonna take a page from you, and it's a little bit Lord of the Rings, or not Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter.
yeah.
Because imagine if they would have introduced the
Gone again.
concept
Oh,
of
yep, you're back.
imagine if they would have introduced the concept of a Horcrux at the end of the seventh book.
Ah,
That's kind of how I
yeah,
feel about how they introduced this concept of the abyss. I feel like if they would have figured that out in the last season, like towards the end, where it's like, oh, I see what they're doing, we could have wasted a little less time and could have allocated more time to like other characters or other storylines or whatever, because that's the big problem with this season, is that there is so much going on that it's impossible to wrap everything up. And just I think that was an interesting concept, and I wish that they would have dove into it a little bit more, but they didn't because they didn't have enough time.
yeah. Again, I like the idea of the Abyss. The
Mhm.
actual Abyss itself, I thought was a rather boring environment. If I'm honest, it's just a desert. But the thing that kind of left me in two minds about it, because I do like the idea that there's like a final sort of zone or final world for them to try and get to as like the climax or something. That was an interesting idea. But I felt like it trivialized the Upside Down, if you get what I mean. It's like it's no longer like the big formidable place that they have to go to defeat Vecna. It's just a bridge
Yeah.
for them to get to the final place. It's like, we've seen the Upside Down as this big formidable, like sort of hellish sort of area that also parallels Dawkins, which is a really interesting idea, I thought. And now suddenly it's not as important as the previous seasons have made out. It's just a bridge to get to somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot of things about the Upside Down that I have questions about. So first of all, this giant meat wall that pretty much introduced this wall this season. It's like, okay, interesting with that. Also, how is it that everyone can just breathe freely in the Upside Down now? Like,
Yeah.
because don't like isn't in season one Hopper walking around the Upside Down with like a gas mask because the air is not breathable? Or am I wrong in
I,
thinking
I
that?
I genuinely can't remember. That would make sense because it certainly looks like the type of world where you wouldn't be able to breathe properly. It's so sort of dreary and dark and everything.
Yeah.
So that
So
would make sense.
that definitely those are questions that I had because I don't know, like I think they spend a lot of time in the Upside Down this season in just ways where it's like, oh, let's just drive around. Let's hide out in this church for a couple episodes. Let's hide out in this office building that has this this like piece of dark matter that is like consuming everything and what have you. So I don't know. Like I do see where you're coming from with that, where it does trivialize the Upside Down, but this season, that's been kind of the MO of the season. It
Yeah.
trivializes a lot of things that we've been built up to believe these are the things that we should be focusing on. And that I'm still reconciling with that. And I know that I'm maybe a little bit more nitpicky about this now that I've had some time to think about this, but these are the questions that I have now that I'm looking at it
Well,
objectively and not just remembering how I felt when they're in that final D&D campaign or when Dustin gives his speech, a valedictorian speech. I don't know. I also, how is it that Max can graduate with them? Like,
oh yeah, everyone's been asking about that.
how can
I
Max?
have no idea how the high school system works in your country, so I can't really comment on that.
Yeah, yeah, that's Max missed a lot of time, and she already wasn't the strongest student. But I don't know. That's
It was 18 months, so I guess she caught up in that time.
I guess so. So let's see. I would like
I
to.
think
Oh, God.
the one other scene I kind of want to talk about is the Jonathan and Nancy's scene in like the melting room.
Okay, go ahead.
I I
Have at it.
honestly I honestly feel like that scene is only in there just because they couldn't figure out any other way that they could get the two of them to just talk. It's like the room has been invented and like stops melting at one point just so that they can be in there but not escape, so that
Mhm.
they have an actual opportunity to finally talk properly about everything. It's like, and I kind of, in a way, sort of like that because it sort of makes sense for like kids when you're at that age. You know, you just don't want to talk about it or open up to anybody, especially like in this like perilous sort of situation.
Mhm.
But I also thought like it kind of seemed like a little silly to me because they're literally like about to drown. They're trying to escape from this room where they think they're going to die, and suddenly like they're not about to die, and they're like, oh, okay, well let's talk in that case. It's like let's never mind about how we're going to escape from here or what Steve or Dustin are up to. Or how they're even going to be able to save us or anything. Let's just talk a little bit. Let's have a little session. So I don't
That
know. The whole thing just seemed a little silly to me.
that it's sitcom level of absurdity in that point. The only opportunity where we actually get to be honest about stuff is when we're about to die, and that's ridiculous. That's absolutely crazy. I also thought, like, even before that, like, Jonathan, your big Hail Mary for this is to propose to Nancy? Really?
Not
Really?
again. Nope.
That's insane, Jonathan. Why would you think that proposing to Nancy would be the solution to all of your problems? Like, I don't know. I feel like that relationship ran its course after season three because when they were split up in season four, not as a couple, but geographically,
Oh goodness me.
sorry about that. But I feel like them being split up geographically would have been a great time for them to be like, yeah, I think we're done. But that's not what they did, and that's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of the two of them being together, just because it was like satisfying for Jonathan to he spend all that time with Nancy during the first season. It's sort of like it made sense that he would start to develop feelings for her. And also at that point, you kind of don't like the fact that she's with Steve because we don't really like Steve at that point. But once you start to like Steve as a character through season two, I no longer like want to see Nancy be with either of them because I don't like the idea of one of them losing Nancy. If you
Yeah.
see what I mean, it's a difficult kind of love triangle where you kind of like all three of them. So yeah, by season three, I no longer wanted to see Nancy and Jonathan together. I honestly like didn't care enough really. And then yeah, they kept dragging it out, and I guess they culminated with this scene where they just like talk. And the whole time I'm watching, I'm thinking like, there's bigger things going on here, guys. Like,
Yes.
I
Yes.
know this is an opportunity to talk, but this is not the time I would want to talk if it were me.
Yeah.
I would want to be thinking about how we're going to get out of here. And the other thing I'm thinking about while I'm watching that scene is like how Steve and Dustin are going to go over that get over the gap in those stairs because that looked pretty difficult. And in the end, they just show up, and I'm like, oh, well, we didn't see how they managed that.
Oh, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah,
As long
yeah,
as
of
Steve,
course not.
as long as they get there alive, it's all good. Okay, John, I have a question for you. So, a lot has been said about this Stranger Things episode where Eleven goes to Chicago and meets other people who are kind of part of the same
You've gone again.
experiment. And
Oh,
hello,
no, you're back. You're back.
a lot has been said about that episode of Stranger Things. I believe it was in season 2 or 3 where Eleven goes to
Yeah.
Chicago and she meets up with, other people who have been through the same experiences that she has. Now, despite what everybody thinks of that episode, or despite what like other people who are apologists for this episode or who ones who don't like it, the inclusion of Callie in this season,
Yeah.
what did you think of that? Did you think that that was a good way to button up that storyline so that it wasn't just kind of like a hanging chat out there, or did you find some meaning in in her character coming back?
I really like the idea of Callie when she was first introduced. It's like, oh, right. So there are other subject characters like Eleven out there that she can relate to and she can talk to about this. And I thought that was like a really cool idea. And then we don't see her again until the final season. I'm like, what was the point of that episode?
Yeah.
And they bring her back in like the final season. Thinking, okay, if you're gonna just bring her back, why have you waited 3 seasons? Like, I needed. I think you needed like at least one other episode at some point, in season two, in season three rather, or season four, to just remind us that she was out there. It doesn't even have to be a scene with 11. It could just be like a reminder that she was out there. Why are you waiting until the final season to bring her back like this? But at the same time, if you don't bring her back even in the final season, that episode is utterly pointless. It goes literally nowhere. So I think you did need to bring her back because otherwise you have a completely pointless episode there. To be honest, you could just skip and you wouldn't miss anything.
Nope.
Other than the fact that 11 looks a bit different at the start
Yep.
of the next episode.
Yep. That's I agree with that. And the only see to me the only reason why I think she was brought back is she's cannon fodder. She's an easy one to sacrifice compared to 11. Even though 11 at the end of the day does sacrifice herself as well. But to me, I think one of the things that I did appreciate about Callie's inclusion in this season is she's a little bit more of a voice of reason. She has no connection to any of these people, not even like to 11 that much. So for her to be like, yeah, we need to sacrifice ourselves because otherwise we're never going to have a normal life. And I think that's an important distinction between
You've gone again.
what I I think that that's an important distinction. Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Cool. I think that's an important distinction that Callie was on the run. She had a bunch of people, kind of similar to her and 11 around with her, but they didn't. But 11 found this community of people that have accepted her for who she is. So I think that the
Yep,
flow.
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I think the flow between the two of them and their different storylines, I think that was an important distinction for the show to take, and for Callie to kind of be a little bit more of a voice of reason versus everybody else in this series just being super protective of 11, and everybody just wanting, like, not thinking realistically about the situation.
Yeah. And I thought they utilized her power quite well in this. I thought, a lot of the things that they do in the final season with her, it probably wouldn't have been possible if she hadn't been there to like project certain images
I
and fool people.
I didn't
I thought
even
that was really
realize
good.
I didn't even realize she had a different set of powers that like or I guess kind of, but I thought that that was a cool dynamic there. Uh, and the scenes between her and Eleven were pretty nice, a nice change of pace from all the other interactions that
Oh,
are
you've gone again.
a little bit
Oh,
more lovey-dovey with Eleven as opposed to her and Callie. So I give it a little bit of credit for that. We were talking earlier about underutilized characters and a couple characters that I did want to point out that were a little underutilized this season. Not a whole lot of Murray this season. I wasn't a fan of that. Didn't do a whole lot. Vicky, like okay, Vicky's another character that's like okay, we're introducing her a little late, but okay, we're there. But perhaps I think along with Erica, I think the one character that I think was underutilized and has been underutilized for a long time is Mr. Clark. And I think Mr. Clark could have had some incredible scenes this season. And we
yeah.
did get a couple cool scenes with him, but
Yeah, I like what they did with him, actually.
yeah, so I could have used more Mr. Clark. Not just this season, but throughout the course of the entire series. Not just in season one, but that's that's just me. Right. All right. What else? What else is on your mind about Stranger Things?
I think that's like most of the main things I've wanted to talk about. I guess we could talk about the epilogue. Would make sense to leave that till the end.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense to leave that towards the end. Trying to think, is there anything else that I missed from this season? No, I guess you're right. Everything else is in the epilogue. So, a couple of things happened in the epilogue. They all graduated from high school, which cool, good for all of them for doing that.
Again.
Hawkins looks like it's just, put back together, everything's all hunky dory. And then we've got this D&D scene at the end that kind of caps everything because I do love that during the graduation, we do have a scene where as the social pariahs that they were at the beginning when they were just a bunch of nerdy kids who were playing D&D, and then at the end the cute girl is like, oh, you should come to our party, and it's like, oh, we've made it, we can go to this party, and then they still choose to play D&D. So which part of the epilogue would you kind of like to focus on at first?
Dustin's speech, actually, I think that was probably my favorite part. Just like again, Eddie getting a good send off, and that little moment you just mentioned there with the girl. I don't know if that's the same girl that rejected him at the end of season two, but I like to think it is.
I
Like he
believe it.
rejects her.
I believe it is. And I thought that part was cool. I just loved that like everyone was there and they were cheering on Dustin. I love that Dustin was the valedictorian because I don't know, there's a part of me that would have been like, oh, Mike's the valedictorian. It's like you've given Mike enough cool moments. You already gave him the girl. You already gave him like the sister in peril. You already gave him the popular older sister. Like, what else did we possibly need to give Mike? So let's give it to
Yeah.
Dustin. I also would not have minded if Lucas was the valedictorian, but the reason why it makes sense to give Dustin the valedictorian is exactly what you said, to give that proper send off for Eddie, paying homage with the shirt, the middle finger, and having Erica with the confetti as well. That's all good stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
It's a really nice scene. And then we had the older kids having a little scene on top of the roof.
oh my God, I completely
Mm.
forgot about that part. So, I liked that scene, but I also kind of hated it. And
Oh, okay.
so okay, I should preface this by saying there's only one thing that I really hated about that part, and that's Jonathan. I hated Jonathan during that part
Oh, okay.
with the pretentious filmmaker and like it kind of reminds me a little bit of Anaconda, this new one where they're like themes. It's all about themes for stuff. Everyone else, I thought Nancy kind of just trudging out there and kind of just, like not knowing what to do with her life. I think that's a satisfying ending for Nancy, mainly because she grew up as this popular girl, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of those who peak in high school and who don't know what to do with their lives. I loved the path that they took with Steve. Like I love that. The health teacher slash sex ed teacher and baseball coach.
Yeah.
He gets to interact with kids,
Oh yeah, I love that they did that for Steve. Yeah.
and I love that, Robin got out of Hawkins and she, like Robin was probably one of my favorite characters this season. Like I thought Robin was
She,
awesome.
she had a lot of great moments. Yeah.
So the part where they're like, "Hey, let's meet up with each other once a month." That's the type of thing that kids say to each other when they know deep down inside they're hardly ever gonna see each other ever again. And I don't know, like I think that part would have been a little bit more meaningful if Jonathan wasn't so over the top about stuff.
Oh, okay.
So what did you think of that part?
I found it kind of sad because I sort of know where that kind of relationship goes. Like after that, you finish up with the friends you made at school, and you're like, well, we're going to different colleges or universities and everything, and we will see each other like
We'll
a
be
couple of
friends
times, like
forever.
yeah,
Yeah.
a couple of times like a year maybe. Try and get in touch like once a month or something. And you just know that eventually, like after like a year or so, that they're probably not going to be talking to each other very much, and they're going to like lose contact with each other, and they're going to go off and go their separate ways, and they're not going to see each other again. It's like you just know that's where it's going to go. You don't realize it at the time, but the friends you make at school, they're not going to be your friends forever
No,
at all.
no, no, they're definitely not. And I think that was a great way to represent that. I did love that they all met up at the radio station
Yeah.
there. I thought that was a nice touch. And yeah, I thought that was an interesting scene. One other scene to get to that I completely forgot about. What did you think of Joyce and Hopper at dinner?
Oh gosh, I don't remember that. I'm trying to remember what they did with that.
So he proposes to her.
Oh, of course, yes, he proposed.
And
Yes.
he lets her know that hey, we don't have to stay here either. We can
Yeah.
we can go wherever we want, including this random place that is known to have supernatural things happen and whatnot. So a bit on the nose with that,
Yeah,
but
I think if you're going to have two characters like tie the knot at the end, it probably has to be those two. That was like the one sort of consistent thing I think throughout the series was Joyce and Hopper. Like
yeah,
they felt like they needed to be together.
right. No, I agree with that. So I think both of us can agree that that was like, okay, that expected thing to happen. Good for them, with Winona Ryder and David Harbour kind of being the older stalwarts of the show and just also just the adults in the room a lot of times. So,
Yeah,
so did appreciate that. All right, let's talk about this D&D scene. Fitting way to
you've gone
to end
again.
this. Yeah, so fitting way to end the series with this final D&D campaign. I love that Max was involved with this, even though she's resisted playing D&D for a long time. And as somebody who just played their first D&D stretch a couple weeks ago, I
All
get it.
right.
I get it, Max. Like it's hard. It's hard adjusting to all of this, but I felt it a very satisfying way to end this story for this particular group. There's a lot of nostalgic moments. It takes us into the future for what ostensibly is to come for most of these kids.
Okay.
And they talk about 11. I think there's only a couple parts about this that I didn't like, but I'll save that for a second. What are your thoughts on this final scene of
I
the series?
I thought it was kind of neat that they sort of bookended the entire series because they're playing D&D in like not literally the first scene of the series, but the first time we see those kids, they're
Yeah.
playing D&D, and it's the last thing they're doing when we see them. And they also like pass the torch onto Holly's group of kids, and sort of like maybe alluding to the fact that maybe they're going to go on a similar kind of adventure. And it's, I think, also sparks of like a few rumors online or theories online about maybe the entire series was just a D&D campaign.
I've heard
That the kid,
that.
yeah.
I've I've heard that as potentially a thing. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I have also heard that potentially that D&D scene with Holly and her friends is teeing up their next up for a Stranger Things spinoff, which if that's the case, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Just
No, I don't
leave
want more Holly after
leave
after that.
leave well enough alone and just call it a
Yeah,
day. But then I don't know. I just felt like if they would have kept it with that particular group and they would have just gone upstairs instead of the comedic moment with Mike's mom saying, "Oh, it's time for dinner. It's lasagna or whatever it is." I don't know. Like nitpick things that I didn't like about that stuff, but I did find that whole sequence just very moving, and it just goes to underscore that we have been following this group of kids. Even Max, who was there like at the start of season 2, so she was she wasn't there from the start, but she was still an integral part of the group. The only thing missing is that it just sucks that kind of like what you said, that 11 didn't get to live this normal life that we all
yeah,
hoped that she would eventually get. But yep.
yeah.
So
It's like probably my biggest negative about the way that they ended things. It's like just that 11, even if she's still alive, she's got to go off on her own and just like constantly be on the run from the government. It's like that is not what I want for 11. I did not
right.
want to see her end her story like that.
Yep. Well, we're talking about a lot of stuff. So, John, any final thoughts? We're putting a wrap on Stranger Things, not just volume 5, but just the season as a whole. John, give me your thoughts on the Stranger Things, the legacy that it leaves behind. Any final thoughts that you want to give for Stranger Things?
I think it's opened the door to a lot of like new kind of ideas of how you can bring back the ideas from like the 80s or even further back, and people aren't going to think it's like outdated or it's just retreading old ground. You can make it a homage. You can make it kind of like a nostalgia sort of trip. You can even set it in the time period where that kind of genre or story like was fashionable, and it'll work. I also think it's shown that like teen drama is like just the best kinds of stories that you can tell. Like just the way that your mind is just all over the place during that time of your life is like it's just has like the most potential for story imaginable. So yeah, I am kind of excited for the idea that is like open the doors for like new things like and also the nostalgia appeal that it had. Like I am waiting for the 90s version of Stranger Things. I really am excited as a 90s kid myself. I want to see that at some point, some kind of 90s nostalgia sort of series, not like Stranger Things, but has like the 90s nostalgia to it. So yeah, I think it has opened the doors to a lot of new ideas and stories that we could see in the future. And obviously, Stranger Things legacy, what these kids are going to go on to do now. I think, Millie Bob Brown, obviously, and Flynn Wolfhard are pretty big stars. I hope the other kids go on and have like successful careers, and obviously going to keep an eye out for what the Duffer Brothers do in the future as well. So yeah, I really hope it like paves the way for a lot of new kinds of ideas of stories, and see what the Duffer Brothers do as well.
So well said. There's a couple things that I think about. Imagine if the show would have stuck to its original premise, where each season this was supposed to be an anthology series.
Oh yeah, it
And
was. You're right. Yeah.
so that's one of Hollywood's big like
Oh, you've
what
gone again.
ifs. If they would have stuck with the original premise and they would have gone season to season a new mystery, would the show have the lasting impact that it does today? But they didn't. They ultimately decided not to do that, which is fine. But then it's kind of funny how the decisions you make in the past kind of shape, the course that you do in the future. So I give them a lot of credit for sticking with this cast because this cast was amazing. I agree full-heartedly with you that, the teen aspect of this, because ultimately this is a story about growing up, right? So, and what better stories are there out there than to talk about coming of age and growing up? So I like that about that a lot. I have to take Netflix to task a little bit on this because this season represents two things that I can't stand about streaming TV. One, that it takes forever for new seasons to come out. and a major culprit of that is Stranger Things. So thank you very much for that. But
Yeah.
also, do they really think that we have nothing better to do on Christmas than to sit around and watch 3 episodes of Stranger Things?
We got lucky over here because it didn't come out until after midnight over here on what we call Boxing Day.
Yeah.
So
So
actually, I didn't disrupt my Christmas at all.
there's that was a little bit on the bothersome side, but not a huge deal at the end of the day. This will go down as one of Netflix's biggest shows, and just kind of shows the power of what Netflix can do for individuals. This I would say that the show changed the trajectory of many of these kids' lives, because without this, they wouldn't have the platform that they did. Like I think this single-handedly revitalized Winona Ryder's career, right?
Oh yeah,
So I
yeah,
think without this,
absolutely.
she wouldn't have been, the person or the performer that she is today. I think this springboarded David Harbour in a way that I don't think he had before. So kudos to that. And I agree with the nostalgia factor. I think the way, because shows and movies have done the nostalgia thing with the 80s and now the 90s as they're moving on to that, and they haven't done it as well. And I feel like this did it very well. I think because I think it committed, and I think it committed to not only the way the clothes, but they also committed with the music. They committed with just all of that. So I'm going to miss this show as much as I kind of ragged on it this for this season. I will miss it because it was one of those big shows that I always looked forward to. And to me also this, because between this, Cobra Kai and Squid Game ending, what does that mean for Netflix? Like what's their next big show? Like is everyone just on bated breath to just find another season of Wednesday, or is there
Bridgerton, I think, is probably their biggest show they got now.
how many more seasons could that go? Because right now they're on their fifth Bridgerton kid, fourth season, but fifth Bridgerton kid getting married. There's only 3 more
Oh, I,
left.
I I don't watch it, so I don't know.
Oh,
But
I do. So
mm,
I yeah, like you've got 3 more seasons of this max before
yeah.
you have to either continue to spin off or you continue to do something, or you're just done. So I don't know. Like Netflix has got its work cut out for them, that they need to find like their next big things, and I'm just curious to see what they do. So yeah. Well, that's a wrap on Stranger Things, and that's a wrap for us today. So, John, thanks a lot for your time and for talking about Stranger Things. John, do you have anything that you want to plug, and where can the people find you if they want to continue the conversation?
So you can find me on Instagram, John Tillyard 86. That's the numbers 86. I'm also on Threads with the same username, if anybody still uses that site. And I also write for SiftPop. My most recent review is Goodbye June, which is another Netflix film. It's a Christmas film directed by Kate Winslet.
Mhm.
My next review, which is a film I saw earlier today as we're recording this, actually, Goat, which is a Sony animation film. That review, I
Okay,
imagine, probably be out within a week of recording this.
I have to ask, what did you think? I'm very curious
Oh,
because I've
go on.
heard I it's from it's from the same studio that did K-pop Demon Hunter and Spider-Man. What did you think of it? Or am I
It,
gonna have to wait until the review?
it has the same animation style as K-pop Demon Hunters and Into the Spider-Verse, and it has that same kind of visual appeal in that sense. But in terms of the story, nowhere near.
Hmm.
Nowhere near as good.
Cool. Cool. All right. Well, sounds good. John, thanks for your time. Looking forward to chatting with you more soon.
Okay, yeah, cheers.
That's going to do it for this episode of SPDM TV. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew, wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Shout out to HiFlyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you've got any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at HiFlyerCreative.com. Check out the other shows in our network. We've got a lot of great content, so please check out the other shows and support the SPDM Crew members. And finally, if you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM Crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, happy watching, friends.